Pelican Bay Supermax. Life in the SHU. The silent scream. The sound of fists pounding on steel doors echoes down a long, dark hallway. Inside one of those tiny cells, an inmate presses his face against a narrow slot, screaming, but no one answers. His voice fades into the silence. This is Pelican Bay's SHU, the place where the state's most feared inmates are locked down 23 hours a day. No sunlight, no voices, just concrete, steel, and the crushing weight of isolation. Prisoners bang on their doors just to remind themselves they're still alive. Some whisper to pipes, hoping another man on the other side will answer. Others never come back from the silence. But here's the question. How did they end up here? And what really happens when the door slams shut inside Pelican Bay's SHU? The arrival. The bus rolls up to Pelican Bay Supermax in Crescent City, California. The prison looms like a fortress. High walls, razor wire, and watchtowers cutting through the fog. Inside the bus, new inmates sit chained, staring at the concrete monster they're about to enter. Most have heard the stories. Once you're in the SHU, you disappear. The doors open. Guards move fast, barking orders. Every man is stripped, searched, and walked down a hallway colder than the night outside. Their destination? The security housing unit, known by its nickname, the SHU. This is not a regular prison block. This is a place built for silence, built to break people down. At first, things seem calm. Cells look clean. The corridors shine under fluorescent lights. But that calm doesn't last long. An older inmate whispers to the newcomer through the vent, "Don't let the quiet fool you. The SHU eats men alive." The new inmate doesn't answer. He just stares at the gray walls, wondering how many days, weeks, or years he'll spend here. Suddenly, bang! A loud crash erupts down the tier. Someone is slamming his head against the steel door, blood streaking down his forehead. Guards rush in, shouting, dragging the man away in restraints. The newcomer realizes this is just day one, and already the SHU is showing its teeth. The routine. The next morning, the new inmate wakes up in darkness. There is no sunrise here, only the buzz of fluorescent lights switching on overhead. He looks around his cell. It's small, just a steel toilet, a concrete bed, and a slot in the door where food trays slide through. No window, no clock. Time doesn't exist in SHU. Guards walk the tier. Their footsteps echo like a drumbeat. Each door opens only for seconds, to drop off a meal, to collect trash, to check if the man inside is still breathing. Breakfast, a tray of powdered eggs and cold oatmeal. Lunch, a sandwich wrapped in plastic. Dinner, often the same meal reheated. Most days are like this, silent, mechanical, endless. But the silence doesn't mean safety. Men find ways to talk, through vents, through pipes, even by yelling across the tier. One inmate tells the newcomer, "Count your steps. That's how you stay sane." Another says, "Don't trust the quiet. The walls are listening." For a moment, it almost feels normal. Almost. Then, out of nowhere, the silence breaks. A scream rips down the hallway. Guards rush toward a cell where an inmate is standing in the middle of the floor, his arms covered in blood. He's carved into his own skin, writing letters no one understands. The guards slam the door open, dragging him out. The smell of iron fills the air. The newcomer stares through his slot, frozen. Life in the SHU is not just about surviving the guards. It's about surviving your own mind. Cracks in the mind. Days turn into weeks. For the newcomer, time feels like it's melting. He counts every crack in the concrete. He memorizes the hum of the fluorescent light. He even starts whispering to the toilet pipes, hoping someone answers. And sometimes they do. Through the plumbing system, voices travel. Prisoners pass messages like secrets in the dark. "Stay strong, brother. Don't let the walls win." But not every voice is a comfort. One night, the newcomer hears laughter echoing through the pipes. Cold, twisted laughter. He presses his ear closer, but it doesn't stop. It grows louder, like it's crawling into his head. The SHU has its own language. Men create codes, tapping on the walls. 3 taps mean "I hear you." 5 taps mean danger. The walls talk, even if you don't want them to. Then Something changes. A guard walks the tier and stops at a cell. He peers in and calls for backup. Within minutes, alarms sound. The door bursts open. Inside, an inmate has torn apart his mattress, setting it on fire. Smoke pours out through the slot, filling the corridor with black haze. Guards in riot gear swarm the block. They drag the prisoner out, coughing, burned, but still laughing like the fire gave him freedom. The newcomer stares at the smoke curling into his own cell. If the fire could spread, would anyone survive? Or would the SHU itself burn them all alive? The power struggle. Life in the SHU is a chess game. Guards hold the keys, but the inmates, they hold silence, patience, and time. Every move matters. A smirk at the wrong moment can bring punishment. A whispered word in the wrong ear can end in blood. The newcomer learns quickly. Meals are a weapon. Guards sometimes forget trays. Other times, food is delivered cold or soaked in water. It's not about nutrition. It's about control. But inmates fight back in their own ways. Some clog their toilets until water floods the cell block. Others smear walls with filth just to force a response. It's ugly, but it's the only power they have left. One day, the tier goes quiet. Too quiet. Guards step carefully, their radios buzzing. Then it happens. An explosion of rage. Through the food slot of one cell, an inmate launches a hidden weapon, a sharpened piece of metal wrapped in tape. It slices the air, missing a guard's face by inches. Alarms blare. Boots slam against the concrete. Riot teams storm in, shields raised. Pepper spray floods a corridor, choking everyone, guilty and innocent alike. The newcomer hides his face in his shirt, coughing, eyes burning. When the chaos clears, the floor is stained and the prisoner who attacked is dragged away, shackled, screaming curses at the guards. The SHU returns to silence. But that silence feels heavier now, because everyone knows it won't last. If a single hidden weapon can spark this much chaos, what happens when an entire tier decides to strike back? The invisible chains. The newcomer starts to notice something strange. Even though everyone is locked alone in their cells, certain inmates seem to get what they want. A whisper through the vent, a coded knock on the wall, a folded note slipped under a door during shower rotations. It becomes clear the gangs still run the SHU, the Mexican Mafia, the Aryan Brotherhood, the Black Guerrilla Family. Their leaders may be trapped in concrete boxes, but their voices carry like commands from ghosts. If a new inmate refuses to listen, he'll find his food stolen, his name marked, or worse, his life threatened. Even in isolation, no one is truly alone. Invisible chains bind everyone together. The newcomer overhears two men speaking through the pipes. Green lights on him. Those words mean only one thing. A target has been chosen. Days later, during yard time, where inmates are caged in small outdoor pens, separated by mesh fencing, violence erupts. One man presses a sharpened piece of metal against his own skin, then throws himself against the mesh, trying to stab through to the next cage. Guards swarm. Alarms scream. Men shout from every direction. The yard is shut down. Inmates dragged back to their cells. But the message is clear. If the gangs decide you're marked, not even the SHU can save you. The breaking point. In the SHU, silence isn't just quiet, it's pressure. It crushes the mind like weight on the chest. The newcomer marks days on the wall with scratches. But after a while, he isn't sure if the marks are right. A week could feel like a month. A night could feel like forever. Some men cope by exercising in their cells, push-ups, sit-ups, pacing in tiny circles. Others recite old memories like prayers, holding on to the past so they don't dissolve in the present. But not everyone survives the silence. One afternoon, the newcomer hears faint humming. At first, it sounds almost peaceful, a melody floating through the vent. But then the humming turns to shouting. The shouts twist into sobbing. Guards rush to the cell. The man inside has smeared the walls with his own blood, carving words that no one can understand. His eyes are blank, his voice trembling as he whispers, "The walls are alive. They're talking to me." The guards drag him out, but his screams echo long after he's gone. That night, the newcomer lies awake, staring into the dark. he realizes something terrifying. In the SHU, it isn't always the gangs or the guards that break you. Sometimes it's your own mind that becomes your enemy. The riot inside silence. For weeks, the tier has been buzzing with tension. Men pound their fists against steel, shout through the vents, and send coded messages through pipes. The guards sense it too. Something is coming. The newcomer notices a pattern. Trays shoved back harder than usual. Curses whispered louder, eyes burning through the slots. The air feels heavier, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath. Then one morning, the spark ignites. A guard slides a tray through the food slot. The inmate inside grabs the guard's arm and refuses to let go. Another cell door bursts with screams. Within seconds, the tier erupts. Prisoners flood the air with noise, banging, yelling, throwing whatever they can reach through the slots. Some launch hidden weapons, sharpened plastic, broken metal, even hot liquid saved from meals. The guards call for backup. Boots thunder down the hallway. A siren blares. Red lights flash. The riot squad storms the SHU. Shields up, pepper spray in the air. They pound on doors, force men to the back of their cells, and fire rubber bullets through the slots. The sound is deafening, metal, shouting, coughing, chaos. The newcomer crouches in the corner of his cell, covering his face from the choking gas. Through the haze, he sees a guard dragged down by two inmates reaching through their slots, tearing at his uniform, trying to pull him in. More officers rush in, swinging batons. The struggle is brutal, uncontrolled. And then, silence again. The tier is locked down. Men are left coughing in the dark, blood dripping onto the floor. The guards leave with one of their own limping, his face hidden behind a broken shield. The newcomer's heart pounds. He whispers to himself, if this is just a riot on one tier, what happens if the entire SHU rises up? Punishment and control. After the riot, the tier is silent. But it's not peace. It's punishment. The guards crack down hard. Yard time is cut. Showers are canceled. Meals are reduced to cold sack lunches. Every door slam feels heavier, like a warning. For inmates, this is a cycle. Fight back, get crushed harder. The message is clear. The SHU always wins. The newcomer notices how punishment isn't always physical. Sometimes it's psychological. Guards turn on bright lights in the middle of the night, jolting men awake. Other times, they leave the lights off completely, forcing inmates to sit in darkness for days. The silence deepens. Some men stop talking altogether, staring at the walls until their voices fade like ghosts. Others break down, screaming at shadows, begging to be heard. But not everyone stays broken. Whispers travel again through vents and pipes. They think they've shut us down. They're wrong. One night, the newcomer wakes to a strange sound. Soft at first, then louder. Dozens of fists slamming against steel doors in rhythm, echoing like a drumbeat through the block. Boom, boom, boom. The sound grows until the whole tier shakes. It's not just noise. It's a message, a warning, a promise. The guards rush in, but the pounding doesn't stop. In the darkness, the newcomer realizes the SHU is a place built to silence men. But when all those silences rise together, the walls themselves begin to shake. When the walls bleed, for weeks, tension simmers like a hidden fire. The pounding on steel doors, the whispered codes through vents, the silent glares at guards. It all builds towards something inevitable. The newcomer senses it. Every step, every tray slot, every echo feels like it's leading to an eruption. Then one morning it happens. During breakfast delivery, a guard bends down to slide a tray through a slot. In a flash, a hand shoots out, clutching a sharpened piece of metal. Blood sprays across the corridor. The guard collapses, screaming. Chaos detonates instantly. Men scream from their cells. Some laugh, others chant, pounding against their doors like war drums. Guards rush in, shields raised, pepper spray flooding the air. Radios crackle with frantic voices. Officer down! Officer down! The tier transforms into madness. Inmates throw hidden stashes of urine and feces through their slots, covering the riot squad as they try to regain control. The newcomer presses his back against the wall, his chest tight, choking on the spray. He watches as the injured guard is dragged down the hall, leaving a trail of red across the polished concrete. When the alarms finally stop, the tier is locked down harder than ever. But something has changed. The silence afterward isn't fear. It's power. The inmates know they've drawn blood, that even behind steel and concrete, they can still strike back. The newcomer whispers to himself, voice shaking. If one man can do this, what happens when the whole block decides it's time? Solitary within solitary. The attack on the guard sends shockwaves through Pelican Bay. The SHU is already the end of the line, but now the prison decides to go even further. The punishment begins immediately. Meals are stripped down to the bare minimum: bread, water, and cold leftovers. Showers are reduced to once a week. Yard time? Gone. But the worst punishment is what the inmates call the box within the box. Certain men are dragged from their cells and taken deeper into the SHU, into bare, windowless cells where even the air feels tighter. No mattress, no property, just 4 blank walls and endless hours of nothing. The newcomer hears whispers through the vents. They put him in the black cell. They left him there with no clothes, no light, nothing. Days pass. The prison feels heavier, quieter, darker. Men who return from the black cell don't come back the same. Some shake uncontrollably. Others stare at the ceiling, eyes empty, words gone. But silence can't hold forever. One night, the newcomer is jolted awake by a violent crash. An inmate down the tier has shattered the small metal mirror bolted to his wall. With a jagged edge, he slices his arms, painting the walls with blood as he screams. I am still here. Guards swarm the cell, but the message has already spread through pipes, through walls, through every man locked in isolation. The SHU try to bury him in silence. He answered with chaos. And the newcomer realizes with a chill, this cycle will never end. Each punishment only breeds another explosion. Each silence hides another scream waiting to break free. When guards hear the walls, the SHU is designed to control men, but after years of riots, punishments, and endless silence, something strange begins to happen. The walls don't just break inmates. They start breaking the guards, too. The newcomer notices it first in the small details. A guard forgets to lock a food slot. Another jumps at the sound of a door slamming, his hand shaking on his baton. Isolation doesn't stop at the cell. Guards walk the same echoing hallways every day, hearing the same screams, breathing the same recycled air. They too are trapped in the SHU cycle. One officer whispers to another as they pass by. Sometimes I hear them even when I go home. The pounding, the voices. I can't sleep. The line between inmates and guards begins to blur. Both sides are prisoners now, one by concrete, the other by duty. Then one night, it all unravels. A guard unlocks a cell for routine checks. The inmate inside lunges forward, tackling him to the floor. His screams echo as other prisoners pound on their doors in rhythm, turning the entire tier into a deafening roar. Backup arrives, but the damage is done. The guard is dragged out, shaken, bleeding, his uniform torn. As the alarms die, the inmates chant through the pipes, their voices carrying through the block. We run the SHU. We run the SHU. The newcomer lies in the dark, his heart racing. For the first time, he wonders, what if the guards finally break too? What happens when the keepers become as broken as the kept? The war inside the mind. By now, the newcomer has learned one truth. The SHU isn't just concrete and steel. It's a machine built to break the human mind. The lights flicker on at random hours, destroying sleep. Guards slide trays in late, just to confuse meal times. Some cells are left freezing cold, others sweltering hot. It isn't just punishment. It's strategy, psychological warfare. The newcomer hears men talking to themselves louder each day. Some laugh at nothing. Others argue with voices that don't exist. The air carries a constant chorus of whispers, sobs, and screams. But the mind tricks don't end with the prisoners. One night, the newcomer swears he hears footsteps inside a cell, even though the door is shut. Another inmate yells that shadows crawl along his walls at night. Some claim to hear their mother's voices through the vents. Whether it's madness or something else, no one knows. But in the SHU, the line between reality and hallucination is razor thin. Then, one evening, it goes too far. A prisoner down the tier begins to howl, claw at the walls with his bare hands until his nails rip off. Guards rush in, but he fights like a wild animal, screaming that the walls are closing in and swallowing him whole. They drag him out in restraints, his body shaking, his eyes wide with terror. The silence afterward feels colder than ever. The newcomer presses his head against the steel door, whispering, "If the SHU can make men see what isn't there, how long before I lose my own mind?" Desperate to escape, by now, weeks blur into months. The newcomer has stopped counting days. Every scratch on the wall looks the same. Every meal tastes like dust. And then he hears it, the whisper of the one word that spreads like fire through the pipes, through the vents, through every cell. Escape! It sounds impossible. The SHU is a fortress. Solid steel doors. No windows. Cameras on every corner. Guards watching every move. But desperation can twist a man's mind into believing the impossible. Through coded taps, inmates begin to trade ideas. We dig through the wall. We rush the yard cages. We fake suicide, then jump the med team. The newcomer listens, half in disbelief, half in fear. But he knows, when men have nothing left, even madness can sound like hope. One night, he hears a sharp scraping noise from the cell next door. The sound is faint but steady, a spoon stolen from a meal tray, sharpening against concrete. Day after day, the noise grows. Then, suddenly, the scraping stops. Alarms blast through the SHU. Guards flood the block. They've discovered a hole, hidden behind a mattress, dug into the wall of one cell. The prisoner inside is dragged out, his face twisted in defiance, his hands still bleeding from the effort. The tear erupts, some inmates cheer, others curse. The newcomer stares at the chaos, realizing something terrifying. Even if no one escapes, men will destroy themselves trying, because in the SHU, death starts to feel like freedom, blood for defiance. The escape attempt leaves the entire block on edge. The walls buzz with whispers, guard patrol heavier, and punishment falls like a hammer. Every inmate feels it. Yard time? Gone again. Meals shoved through slots like insults. Cells searched, property destroyed, letters ripped apart in front of their eyes. The message is clear. Don't even think about running. But Pelican Bay's SHU isn't just about locking men down. It's about control. And when control slips, violence follows. Days later, tension explodes. During a routine escort, 2 inmates in handcuffs somehow coordinate an attack. One headbutts a guard. The other spins and kicks with shackled feet, knocking another officer to the ground. Chaos detonates in seconds. Sirens scream. Boots pound the floor. Pepper spray clouds the air. Guards swing batons with full force. The narrow corridor becomes a storm of violence. The newcomer presses against the wall of his cell, watching through the slit as blood splashes onto the concrete. One inmate is slammed so hard his face smashes against the steel. Another is dragged away, coughing and spitting teeth. The tear is locked down harder than ever. But the silence that follows doesn't feel like victory. It feels like something's been unleashed, like the SHU itself is spiraling out of control. The newcomer whispers to himself in the darkness. If this much blood spills from just 2 men, what happens when the whole block decide they've had enough? War behind concrete. The SHU was built to crush rebellion. But after years of silence, riots, and punishment, the walls can't hold back the storm anymore. It starts small. A food tray hurled through a slot. An insult screamed down the tier. Guards respond with pepper spray and batons. But instead of quieting the block, it only fuels a fire. Then one day it erupts. During shower rotations, inmates coordinate through hidden codes. As one man is cuffed and led down the hall, he spits in a guard's face. Another refuses to move. A third throws himself against the cage bars, shaking the block like thunder. Within minutes, the SHU explodes into chaos. Dozens of inmates pound on their doors, screaming in unison. The sound is deafening, shaking the concrete. Guards pour into the corridor in riot gear, shields clashing, batons swinging. The air fills with choking gas, rubber bullets ricocheting off steel. Prisoners throw back what they can, pieces of metal, sharpened plastic, even fire lit from scraps of clothing. The block transforms into a battlefield. The newcomer crouches low in his cell, his heart slamming in his chest as red lights flash through the haze. He sees guards dragging bleeding inmates across the floor, while others continue pounding the doors, refusing to stop. By the time the sirens die, the corridor is a wreck, blood smeared across the walls, shields cracked, smoke still hanging in the air. The SHU returns to silence, but it's not the silence of control. It's the silence of war waiting to begin again. The newcomer whispers, his voice shaking. If this is the war behind concrete, how many more battles are left before the SHU finally breaks? Enemies within. After the riot, the SHU is scarred, walls still stained, air heavy with the memory of chaos. But the real danger hasn't passed. It's just changed direction. With punishments harsher and contact rarer, the inmates' fury turns inward. The gangs tighten their grip, using the vents and pipes to send orders that sound like death sentences. The newcomer overhears a whisper one night. He's greenlit. Those words mean only one thing. Someone inside is marked for destruction. It doesn't take long. During yard time, where men are locked in separate mesh cages, the violence ignites. Two inmates, side by side, begin hurling insults. Within seconds, one smashes his fist against a wire, trying to claw through, while the other pulls a sharpened piece of plastic from his waistband. The cages rattle as guards rush in, spraying gas, pulling men apart. But the message is clear. Even inside the most controlled block in America, the gangs still decide who lives and who bleeds. Back in his cell, the newcomer stares into the steel door, his stomach sinking. In here, enemies aren't just a guard with the keys. They're the men whispering through the walls. They're the voices in your own head. Then late one night, it happens again, only darker. An inmate down the tier begins to scream, not at the guards, not at the gangs, but at himself. He smashes his head against the wall, over and over, until the sound turns sickening. By the time the officers rush in, blood has painted the concrete. The newcomer listens in horror, realizing the truth. In the SHU, survival isn't just about fighting others. It's about fighting your own mind, and many men are losing. The prison that breathes. By now, the newcomer feels like time has dissolved. Days don't exist, only cycles of noise and silence, light and dark. The SHU doesn't feel like a place anymore. It feels alive. The air is heavy, as if the walls themselves are breathing. Every creak of steel sounds like a whisper. Every slam of a door feels like a heartbeat. Even the guards start to change. Their eyes look hollow, their movements slower, their tempers shorter. They bark orders, but their voices tremble. The SHU has swallowed them too. One night, the newcomer wakes to a sound. Soft at first, then louder. Dozens of inmates are chanting through their vents. Words he can't quite understand, repeated over and over, until the whole tier hums like a ritual. The guards storm in, but the chanting doesn't stop. It grows louder, stronger. The sound presses against the walls, making the concrete feel like it's vibrating. Then silence, sudden, crushing. Every voice vanishes at once, leaving the air so still it feels unnatural. The newcomer presses his face to the slot, trying to see down the corridor. That's when he notices it. One cell door is open, just slightly, swinging. No alarms, no shouts, just that single open door in the middle of the block. And in that moment, he realizes something horrifying. In the SHU, sometimes it isn't the inmates or the guards that decide what happens. Sometimes it feels like the prison itself does. The breaking of the SHU, the open door changes everything. Rumors spread fast, carried through pipes and vents. Somebody's out. Somebody slipped the lock. Somebody's free inside the block. The guards lock down the tier, but paranoia spreads quicker than chains. Every man bangs on his door, demanding answers, screaming threats, chanting in unison. The air vibrates with fury. The newcomer sits frozen in his cell, ears straining, waiting for the sound of boots. But instead, he hears something else, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from the hallway. Then bang! A guard shouts, "Stop!" A struggle breaks out in the darkness. Radios scream for backup. The silence shatters into chaos. Sirens blare. Lights flash red. Dozens of guards storm the block in riot gear. Shields slamming against steel, batons raised. The prisoners erupt at the same time, pounding their doors in rhythm, screaming louder than the alarms. The block transforms into war. Gas clouds roll through the corridor. Rubber bullets ricochet. Men cough, choke, and howl. Guards drag out 2 inmates. Blood streaked down their faces. Their hands shackled behind their backs. But the chaos doesn't end. The pounding, the chanting, the rage. It keeps building, like the SHU itself is cracking under the weight of everything it was built to contain. The newcomer crouches in the corner of his cell, his chest heaving, as he whispers to himself. This place was supposed to break men, but now it's breaking itself. The dark truth. When the alarms finally fade, the SHU doesn't return to silence. Not the old silence, at least. This one feels different, like the calm after an earthquake, when everyone knows another tremor is coming. The newcomer listens through the vents. The whispers aren't about gangs anymore. They're not about guards either. They're about the SHU itself. Men mutter, "This place isn't built to hold us. It's built to erase us." They don't care if we live or die. We're ghosts in a cage. The truth settles like dust. The SHU is more than punishment. It's a burial ground for the living. Inmates locked down for decades lose their names. Their voices vanish from the outside world. Families stop writing. Friends stop calling. The world forgets them. But inside, the men don't forget. They etch their names into concrete. They scratch dates into steel. They shout into pipes so their voices won't disappear. The newcomer feels the weight pressing down. For the first time, he understands that surviving the SHU isn't just about food or strength. It's about memory, about refusing to vanish. Then, as if to prove the point, a scream rips through the tier. An inmate has tied a sheet of bars and wrapped it around his neck. Guards rush in, but it's too late. The sound of their boots, their shouts, the clang of steel, it all blends into one final image. A man who refused to be erased, choosing his own ending instead. The newcomer grips the edge of his bed, shaking. He whispers, "This is what the SHU does. It doesn't just lock you away. It makes you choose between losing your mind or losing yourself." The living tomb. By now, the newcomer no longer counts the days. The SHU has swallowed time, erased it, turned it into an endless loop of lights, silence, and screams. He watches as men around him disappear, not by death, but by something worse. Their voices grow quieter, their movements slower. Some just sit in corners, staring at the wall, waiting for nothing. This is the SHU's final weapon, erasure, not by violence, not by riot, not by punishment, but by silence so heavy, it buries men alive inside their own minds. The newcomer remembers the first day, the warning whispered through the vent. Don't let the quiet fool you. The SHU eats men alive. Now he understands. This place isn't just a prison block. It's a tomb where the living are stored, forgotten, broken piece by piece until only shadows remain. But as he lies on his concrete bed, staring at the ceiling, one thought claws its way into his mind. If I don't fight to remember who I am, then the SHU wins. And if the SHU wins, I was never really here at all. Outside, guards walk the corridor. Their boots echo like a heartbeat, steady, endless. Inside, fists slam on steel in distant rhythm. Voices cry out in broken chants. And the walls seem closed tighter with every passing second. The SHU doesn't end. It only waits. And in that waiting lies the most terrifying truth. Inside Pelican Bay's security housing unit, life doesn't move forward. It rots, slowly, silently, forever. The cage that never opens. Pelican Bay's SHU was built as the end of the line, a place where the state's most dangerous, most feared men would vanish. But what the outside world rarely sees is the cost. Here, men are stripped of time, stripped of sound, stripped of themselves. Guards lose their sleep. Inmates lose their names. And the silence, it devours everything. The riots, the screams, the blood, they all fade into one truth. The SHU doesn't just lock men away. It erases them. Some leave broken. Some leave in coffins. Most never leave at all. And yet, behind every steel door, there's still a voice whispering, pounding, reminding the world. We are still here. Pelican Base Supermax. The SHU, the prison that breeds, that breaks, that buries. The question is not whether men can survive inside it. The question is, when the door finally opens, will there be anything left of them at all?